In the almost 6 years of running my business, I have been behind the scenes of the biggest launches for my clients as a social media manager and a strategist. And I have also launched pretty much every offer under the sun, from courses to digital products to VIP days and even my signature program. So I know a thing or two about launching. And in this final episode of the Video Sales School series, I'm going to be sharing the 3 things that I always include in my offers as of 2023. So what has been working? What are things that I'm incorporating? And how can you apply these to your own strategy? If you haven't already, go ahead and binge the previous 3 episodes in this series, whether it's listening on the Shine Online podcast or if you are watching the visual episodes right on YouTube. We've talked about call to actions, how to create easy video content for your launches, and mistakes you don't want to make in your sales content. So go ahead and binge those. But we are wrapping things up in this sales series by just talking about my own launches. So you kind of get to be a little nosy. I don't know what that was. That was like a magnifying glass. I don't know. Okay, the first thing that I always include in all of my launches is all 3 launch phases. And I have been a part of launches that have been thrown together last minute. I have been a part of launches that have been planned for literally months. And from all of that, you really can't leave out one of the launch phases. If you leave out pre-launch, then you go right into launch and people are just like not even primed and ready. And the phase that everyone leaves out is post-launch, right? You do all this amazing launch content and then crickets. You don't post for weeks. You're like in recovery mode and people are like, wow, they really just like sold to me and ghosted. They could be warm leads that want to join your next launch, or it could be people that joined and you have an opportunity to celebrate them and continue bringing awareness to your offer. So let's go over the 3 launch phases. First of all, we have pre-launch. We want to create excitement and hype for your actual launch. So people are ready with not only the information, but the energy needed that once you open doors, people are ready to go. I honestly think this is probably the most important launch phase, and you definitely don't want to miss out on that opportunity to really warm up and prime your audience. And this is where you might include a launch event, which I'll talk about in the next tip. Then we want to get into the actual launch. And I want to make a really important note here that even if you have an evergreen offer, so something that doesn't close or open, you can add ethical urgency that makes sense for a launch, whether you're adding in a bonus, whether you're offering a discount or a coupon code, or maybe it does open and close, or maybe there's limited access. So for example, if you're a service provider, what I did when I was selling VIP days is I said I literally have limited days on my calendar for VIP days. So I wasn't just creating urgency out of thin air. That's why I said ethical urgency, right? Where is there actual urgency of why someone would want to join during a launch? And also a launch really is just like a dedicated period of time for selling. So it can be a campaign, a promotion, they're all really the same thing, but really no matter what you're offering, you can use this launch structure. And then as I mentioned, post-launch is giving yourself some leeway to prep some nurture content to celebrate people that join your launch, to kind of tell people when you might be launching again or what's next, and just get back into a regular cadence of your content. So you don't literally launch and ghost. We do not want to do that. Inside the Video Content Camp, I just released a brand new mini course all about conversions. And inside the curriculum, I share a 2-week launch planning method. So I show exactly how much time to dedicate to each of these phases, because I know a lot of people say 30, 60, 90 days, and this is like a very structured formula. But what I found is it actually kind of depends. So definitely recommend joining the Video Content Camp if you want to dive deeper into launch and sales strategies and using video. So on to tip number 2, and this is a launch event. And I think it's no secret that we know that webinars are a very typical way to launch, where you do some type of training and then at the end you open your launch, you talk about whatever it is that you're offering. And while I think webinars still absolutely work for selling offers, I honestly think a lot of us are kind of bored from hosting them, but also from being a part of them. So let's innovate. At the end of the day, a launch event should just bring excitement and open the doors to whatever it is that you're launching. So I highly recommend just brainstorming how can you use the idea of a webinar, but maybe apply a different format. I have done challenges. I have done virtual summits. I've also just done series of content, whether it's been a series on my podcast or it's been a series of live content or even a series of reels or even an email series, right? So there's so many different ways that you can kind of use an event or even multiple events in a way that feels a little bit more fun, authentic, and aligned with how you want to sell. In 2023, I actually tested out doing Is This For Me calls and open house calls. And these have been such a fun way to essentially have a group open sales call of if you're interested, I don't need to do a training or give you all the information to then tell you to buy. If you're interested, let's just talk about the offer. What are your questions? What do you want to see inside of it? And I've seen every single event I've done, and I've done 4 or 5 of those, they've all converted for different types of offers. I've gotten a sale from every single one. So I think this just shows that sometimes people just need a space to buy, which is what your launch event is for. So while a launch event should absolutely get people excited and primed for your offer, it also should get people prepped to buy your offer. So I want you to think about, what do people need to know or think in order to be ready for your launch? Is it addressing objections? Is it maybe showing a teaser of what it's like to work with you or what they would get in that next level investment? Is it giving them a head start? Is it giving them a preview or an inside look? And kind of a bonus to launch events is it can be a really great tool for building authority and also for building your community, depending on the route that you go. It's such a great way to introduce new people to you and what you do. So you can absolutely keep your webinars. They definitely work, they convert, but really innovate and think about how you can get creative with your launch events, because literally anything goes. And the last thing that I include in every single launch, which I've talked a lot about in this entire series, so it's not at all going to be a surprise, but it is including a variety of content types. I'm going to go through all the different types of content I use in my launch and the role that they play with my launches. The first is email. Email has been one of my top converting pieces of content. So when I'm creating video content and assets during a pre-launch, chances are I'm actually trying to get them to my email list, whether it's a wait list or whether it's registering for this pre-launch event. I like to use Reels for really addressing objections, for sharing my philosophy and my approach on things, and also for promoting things like my launch events. While I am team video all the way, I also do love to use supporting graphics and visuals, so prepping story graphics and also graphics for carousels for pinning at the top of my grid. This really adds a dynamic element to my highlights, to my stories, and also to the pins. In this series, I mentioned there's tons of different types of buyers, and those more analytical buyers that need to know all the stats, numbers, and statistics really love this type of visual content that really visually tells what they're getting, what the event is, when it is. So I like to also include those in my launch. I love to use stories as kind of my in-the-moment content during a launch. So I will use this to answer questions, objections, to really highlight the things that are converting really well in my launch event or even in my emails or my reels. So I kind of use it as a place to build because they are a direct converter, right? They lead to DMs where people can ask more questions, but they also have that very valuable link sticker where people can go directly to whatever it is that you're selling. And of course, you have highlights. So I love to use my stories to build out highlights for my launch event, for my offers, so people can easily find a few different ways to convert. Lives have been a huge part of my launches in the past, where I will go live weekly, multiple times a week on different topics related to my launch event and my offers. And what I found the most helpful with launches is get very, very specific. You don't want to just have open Q&As, but what are the perspective shifts people need to know? How can you celebrate and open doors for your launch and talk about your offer? How can you even go live with clients and even guests in your program, right? So lives are really great because they aren't edited. So they build an extra layer of trust, but they also are like that live bubble at the top of your profile. You have the replay. So it's kind of just another touch point that you're getting in your Instagram content specifically. And I also love to use my podcast. And podcasts are really great because people just buy and convert differently, but people that do listen to podcasts are very loyal listeners. So what I've really been focusing on more and more in my podcast strategy, especially over the last year, is making content that's highly related to my offers and highly relevant to the objections or the struggles or the things that people are looking for that would be a great fit for my program. So that's why I'm doing this video sales school series, wink, wink. It's because I know this is going to be a really great series to build awareness around new camp features like the mini conversions course, but also to just keep the camp at the top of mind. And I know this sounds like a lot of content, and I can definitely admit I have a graphic designer, I have someone to help me with my podcast, but I'm also just really smart in how I approach my content. In the episode where I share my low lift video content tips for launch prep, I'm essentially using a few core pieces of launch assets to build out all the rest of my content. So I'm almost never starting from scratch. So if you've loved this series, I highly recommend joining us inside the video content camp. If you want me to audit your launch content, if you want coaching and ideas on selling your offers, or if you need help creating a simple but effective video strategy going into 2024, I highly recommend joining us inside the camp. We have some really exciting upcoming events, the new mini conversions course, and so many program features that are going to help you create video content that converts. And that is a wrap on the Video Sales School series. Is it really? Yeah, it's a long one. That is a wrap on the Video Sales School series. I hope you love this 4-part series to really break down how to create launch content, sales content, and videos that will help you get closer to your conversion goals. Go back and binge all the previous episodes because they are so good, and I can't wait to see how you use them in your next launch or promotion. I highly recommend listening to this video all about my low lift video content tips for creating launch content fast.